Okay, now we're recording.
Well, good afternoon, Scott. This is Free Range, and I'd like to welcome everybody to our show.
Well, good afternoon. I'm just here in an office, kind of a bedroom, not really a bedroom, but an office. You got a big computer screen here in front of me you can't see, and I come in here and I just do it from here. I could use what's called an artificial studio. You got a blue screen or green screen behind me, and then it produces big desks and big cameras, and I'm sitting behind a desk and I'm talking to you and pointing to the screens and all that. There are people who do that, and it seems to be pretty effective. But I'm not here to sell products per se, anyway. I'm not here to be fancy or pretend I'm in a studio when I'm not. This just isn't my way, at least not now. Until I get word from friends from out of town, off planet, and I won't be doing it that way. Mm-hmm. It's just casual. It's in your face. It's up front. It's truth. That's it. We were talking earlier. So we've officially started the show now, right?
Yes.
We were talking earlier. People ask me, and I don't volunteer this. It isn't part of my path to tell people to eat animals or seafood or not eat them. Mm-hmm. People are going to drop those kinds of things when their subconscious mind is free of the terrorizing negative implant programs they're carrying with them they don't even know they have. It drives them this way. Things were done to people on this planet that they don't know was done to them. And they found themselves born here, growing up with parents and family and government and fellow beings that don't remember who they are or how they got here. And so they all think it's normal. And it isn't. If someone asks me, what do I eat? Because I don't like to get into debate. It's a waste of time confronting people on this issue.
It is.
I'm not here to tell them not to eat meat. I tell them, because they ask, and I say, I don't eat it. And they'll say, why? Because I will not kill any animal on this planet, myself, or seafood, get it open, rip out its guts, chop it up in pieces, put it on a platter, cook it up and eat it, which is what people have to do to give it to people and call it meat or fish in a store. Some fellow human being has to slaughter those things, gut them, rip their guts out, chop them up, blood, get them drained, do all that, put some dye in it to keep it red and put it in a store and call it meat. Now, this is the truth of it. I'm not trying to make it gory for people. This is what some human beings have to do every day. And the rest of the people buy it because it's called meat, and they eat it without having the responsibility to do any of that. In my case, I don't do it because I know I would not do that. Just because some other human being does it for me doesn't alleviate me of the connection energetically, the responsibility for it. And so I will not allow another human being to do for me what I will not do myself. That's spiritual responsibility. That's the way beings from other worlds work. They don't work like people on Earth. So I will say that as truth for myself, and yet I'm not on this show to tell people to be a vegetarian. Mm-hmm. They will drop that, as I did, when they have a higher consciousness about what it is they're doing unconsciously. It's simple.
It was funny with my own experience as I became a vegetarian, because I was raised in the standard same way.
I was, yeah.
And but I also found the longer I stayed away from it, and I do believe there's an addiction to it initially, that has to be broken. The consciousness part, or the part about killing the animal, or looking into their eyes.
I won't do it.
I could never do it.
I wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't either.
I love looking at some koi in a pond swimming around and go up and pet them. I wouldn't even think about killing them. I just wouldn't do it. And just because someone else is willing to do it for me doesn't. Disease comes from the unconscious living of life and how we affect nature and other living things without a thought or a care, without compassion, without even giving a hoot. That is addiction. And the people on Earth are like this, the majority of them. They don't realize they're living in an unconscious state as beings. They don't remember how they got to be on this Earth. Most of them don't remember the other lives on other planets. where they originated from as an atma, a being, not a body, not a brain, the being that runs the body and the brain. They don't remember that. They hear stories. They're told to believe in something called soul on faith, but they don't remember actually what it is themselves. And they're beings running bodies, but they don't remember what they are. Not a clue.
No, you don't.
And so, because they don't have any answers, and the peers they look to, either in religion or government, don't have any answers or won't give it to them, then they just turn to whatever can make them feel somewhat at ease about themselves, and I don't blame them, because they can't get any real experiential answers. Not just data, but actually experience recovering, knowing what they are as a being and how to move it around the universe, because they're going to do it when the body dies anyway. People on Earth are experts at leaving their physical body. What? I'm the first one on this planet, I'm sure, that's ever said that. Anywhere on this planet, at any time. What does that mean? It means every night they put the body to sleep. Without thinking twice about it, they're experts at being able to do whatever it is they do to lay that body down that goes, start snoring, and they're gone. They're actually out of the body, exploring. They don't know it because tyrants in the past and out in space, in other dimensions, have placed them here unconscious deliberately. It wasn't a nice thing to do. It's what part of our real history is. Not just ancient Earth history, which people don't even know about, but galactic history. How human beings came to be on this planet in the first place from other worlds.
And isn't it interesting how religions make sure that people believe that Earth is the only planet in this entire system that has people on it?
Well, if you believe that, then you're never going to wake up to what you once knew before you were made to forget it all. And then you've got a few people, elite people, that can run a system on money and taxation, artificially created, of course, and keep people geared into that to keep their own status. And they themselves have been more deliberately, subconsciously misprogrammed without their consent in stronger ways than the people they rule over. And all of that came from outside this planet, one way or another. For people on Earth to wake up to this fact and really understand it means they're beginning to set their own consciousness free of this trap. There is one right, correct use of the highest faculty a being has. That's the creative imagination. It isn't something you make up in your brain. It isn't something you look out a window and daydream and think you're seeing a beach somewhere and think what's going to be like when you get off work and you're going to come home. It's not made up in the brain. You don't see this in the brain. People think this erroneously.
Yes, they do.
But that isn't how they're seeing it. The being that's running the body works through the pineal gland in the center of the brain. It's a gland that regulates all the other glands, basically controls the whole body. The being uses it as a control center. The rods and cones in it, like in the eyes, but they're set to different frequencies out in the universe, other realities. And the being, and when you go to sleep at night, people unconsciously let the body down. They've been taught to do this and go nappy. It's time to go nappy. When you're 2 years old, you get conditioned to being able to leave the body. That's all it is. And the being will make the pineal gland secrete serotonin, make melatonin. These are chemicals which make the body work on automatic while you're gone. Mm-hmm. And people all over the earth do it. And they're wondering and controversy, debating, about getting out of your body and near-death experiences and a white light down a tunnel. And they're all debating all this stuff in theory, and none of them know for sure. In reality, they're doing it every night, but they don't remember. They've not been trained from birth to bring back full awareness of where they go when they leave their body at night. When your body dies or ceases to function for the last time, you go the same way. You go out of your body and go somewhere you've been going all the time without the body, which has now ceased to function. So it only makes sense that people become consciously aware of how to do this while their physical body's alive.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're tyrants. people themselves who are more trapped that can't help it. I don't blame them. That reinforce this thinking, this erroneous way of believing and imagining. Because if you can get people to imagine, they can't get out of their body. The individual beings or atmas like us that run bodies are co-creators with the source behind all life. I'm not talking about the brain or the human body. The actual atma or being is made of energy, is spherical, shaped like a planet or a moon or a sun. And it's energy. But it's not made up of nuclear material. It's not atomic in nature. It's not a proton, an electron, a neutron. It's something finer and behind all that. It does not work according to the laws of physics. It supports things that work in the law of physics, suspends them in a void we call space, and it's a conscious living energy, and we're all comprised of it. We're individuals. The individual Atma long ago knew how to run bodies without being stuck in them, and how to put them to sleep, which is the trance state, so they can be recharged. But the beings that really know what they're doing go off and co-create new ways of doing things and work on projects with beings from other worlds and higher realities every night. And people on Earth have been so misconditioned, they don't have any habit or any growing up exercising higher faculties. And it takes some work. You have to exercise higher faculties to get them to work so you can bring back full awareness of what you're doing when you're out of your body. There is an energy, I don't want to call it a cord, because it's not a silver cord or a golden cord or whatever, like an astral cord that could be broken and then you die. No. It is a telepathic link between the white core of a sphere and the center is a white core of an atma, a soul. And it connects to other white cores and other beings and into this field of energy. Everything is connected through it. Planets, moons, suns, people to each other. The void of space that looks black to human beings from Earth. If you're in a space shuttle and you're a human being looking out with a camera at space, it looks black. But that's only because the human eyes can only see a small frequency of the huge spectrum of light and sound that runs everything. And you have to get out of that body in this spherical form to be able to see that dark void, that dark matter, which scientists on Earth today know is not dark. It is energy. Massive amounts of energy filling everything in space. Even the darkness between galaxies, full of this stuff. It's a void of oxygen, but it's not void of energy. You have to use instruments or something to enhance your ability to see into higher spectrums to see what it's really like. And it's energy.
Now, this connection, is this where the concept of oneness comes from?
Well, concepts are about as worth nothing.
Okay.
Because
Well,
they're tied to theory, and theory's tied to speculation, and that's tied to debate. And behind the debate is anger, and behind that is terror, emotionally. Which means as long as people are stuck in debate and theory and will not allow themselves to know anything, for sure, they're working subconsciously driven from artificially created terrorizing control programs put into an artificially created thing on Earth that people call a subconscious mind. Beings in other worlds who are normal do not have subconscious minds at all.
That was amazing the first time I heard you say that.
Because if it's subconscious, beings who know how to do it can control you through what you don't know is being put there. Subconscious. Not so good.
And those are the programs that they have implanted around the Atma. Is that correct?
Right. The atmospherical has a white core and different layers around it with little teardrop shapes going through the spectrum of color, oddly enough, that you'd find in white light broken through a prism. But it isn't matter. It's much higher frequency of energy. And it goes from white, begins to be orange to red, to a little bit of green, then blue, then lavender, then violet, and then kind of a golden energy runs around it. It's an electromagnetic field. But it's not an electromagnetic field around the physical body like the aura. That's just people seeing projected over the body some of the layers that are around the being itself running that body.
Oh, wow. Is that what that is?
Yeah. because the body can't generate its own aura. A being has one. A body does not. It has a thinner, a little energy field around it, but it only is around a physical body when an atma is running it. Bodies cannot run themselves. Brains do not run themselves. That's not possible.
Wow. So that's all coming from the Atma then.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So if a person on earth remembered what they are, that's in the image of the source, which is not this, they got that all wrong on earth.
That's big.
Human bodies are not the only higher genetic form that the Atma or soul can run. There are countless numbers of them. Bipedal, upright walking beings, semi-human, humanoid that aren't even human, that are kind or nice or highly evolved. People are so manipulated on earth to never understand with certainty that all this exists. A classified system on this planet put officially in place after World War II was designed to keep people in the dark about extraterrestrials altogether, because it terrified the leaders at the time. They didn't know what to make of it, good or bad. And they were being influenced through the misuse of extraterrestrial technology by tyrants to do their bidding in a very subtle way. And the people at the time, after World War II, were too naive and unsophisticated enough to even know it was being done to them. And it was done to them breaking an off-world treaty. And much of that's been policed, and some people have been set free of that, even in government, or are being set free of it now, because it was done to them without their consent. This country and many others signed a treaty with a totalitarian extraterrestrial race to get their older extraterrestrial technology in exchange for certain favors. And it was signed against the better judgment of the people who signed it. Because the good guys wouldn't give us nuclear bomb technology.
I would hope not.
Or anything else that would destroy us or hurt them.
Yeah.
They required that we give up all radioactive materials because they don't use them. They're outlawed. They're not a form of energy, and they're man-made. They don't fly their ships across the stars and galaxies using radioactive warp cores, for instance. Not done. So, they're one of the requirements in order for them to bring all that technology, cures for all diseases. You want to live a body 1,000 years, no problem. As long as you're not trapped in it, you know what you are that's running it. Then it's not a prison. That's how they live. So they wouldn't bring things here that didn't set people free that way, but they do require and have required and do require that this planet's working under one kind world government. Not like it is now. If we're going to be allowed to play among the stars with them, we have to be trustworthy, responsible, and non-psychotic, full of driven by fear, because they'll just take that out in the stars and start shooting at stuff. And it'd be inevitable, because if you have pilots on those ships who are trained in the military, who are driven by subconsciously implanted fear they don't even know they have, they're going to make incredible mistakes in judgment when they get out there. And the beings out there know that. They're never going to allow it. Never.
But
There's no power. There's no weapon on this planet or technology, hidden or otherwise, that could compete in any way, shape, or form with large organizations, worlds out there. And they'll never get it the way they are. You have to have a higher consciousness than they have in order to even acquire understanding it.
So this is where other beings will be working with the people that are in those positions that can make a difference.
That's part of it. But it's not just about setting free former tyrants on Earth. Mm-hmm. It's about setting free the populace as well, simultaneously.
All at one time.
Yeah, because otherwise you have rioting in the streets and people running in terror and fear. The whole idea of the National Security Act in the States and classifying everything about extraterrestrials was to get people to rebuild a destroyed world after World War II and feel safe and be baby boomers and make babies. Mm-hmm. Have jobs and be successful and pay taxes. That's what that was done for. Because, they needed people to feel safe. Governments knew extraterrestrials were coming here. They couldn't tell the people that, because then they couldn't say our militaries can protect you, because these guys are so far advanced they wanted to kick our ass, they could do it in 10 seconds. And because of a treaty that is policed off outside of this world, that's never happened, or the tyrants would have done exactly that. They don't bomb cities and destroy infrastructure, tyrants. They get control of the most egotistical elite group, twist them subconsciously, get them to control politicians and then the people. Then they can keep everybody working and get resources shipped off the planet, which has been taking place for 65 plus years for their old stuff. A terrible arrangement no one in their right mind would ever have made. Eisenhower started that, Truman before him, but he didn't do it of his own free will. And he regretted it the rest of his life after he was president.
Wow.
Because that military-industrial complex is its own government now.
He put out a warning about that too. He really did.
They did it because they wanted to research advanced technology from the stars. They didn't want it getting in the hands of the Soviets. The Soviets were doing the same thing. They didn't want to get in the hands of they wanted to be superior. China did the same thing. This is their old stuff, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
Even anti-gravity ships, that's old stuff. There's anti-gravity ships, and there's ships that can go across galaxies. There's ships that can take years to get somewhere, anti-gravity, and there's ships that can get there in a few minutes. There's a huge difference in the way these work. So, throw the dogs a bone. Pretend to give them extraterrestrial technology that matters, but really you just want to use them. Tyrants think that way. If it hadn't been for the intervention of beings from other worlds policing an off-world treaty that came about at the end of a great war in our galaxy 500,000 years ago, Earth would have been, 3/4 of the population would have been murdered violently, and the other 500 million could have easily been controlled, and they would have just sucked this resources out of this planet, or kept people working here as slaves, developing resources. That's how tyrants think. They don't blow up infrastructure like Hollywood. That's not how tyrants think. Deranged beings on that level could never function intelligently enough to run the extraterrestrial technology to get across the stars.
What's it going to take to get declassification implemented, or?
Well, it's very simple. Beings get out of their bodies. Remember we started this conversation that way?
Yeah, that's true.
They get out of their bodies every night anyway, and they don't know it. So they're being met with beings that are either familiar to them in lives they've been made to forget when they came from other worlds, something that makes them feel comfortable. They're being gradually shown the actual truth they're never taught on Earth, until they begin to understand that the direction they're heading this planet in was manipulated, and it would destroy all life on this planet, including their own. If beings from other worlds and higher dimensions hadn't already intervened here, there would have been a nuclear holocaust on this planet. Life would be gone here now. They weren't intelligent enough not to set off hydrogen bombs in our own atmosphere and radiate the whole planet. They weren't intelligent enough not to try to use them if push came to shove. And one side or the other did push the button during the Cold War. And in every case, their launch computers were shut down here in the former Soviet Union. From space.
Thank you.
You really think they're going to tell the public that? That they had no control over their launch computers from something else? And then that something else just sailed off and didn't even say hello or goodbye, just do whatever you want, but that, forget about it. Now, if they did tell the public that, which would be a good thing to tell them first, then they'd be off the hook on the whole nuclear issue. And they could dismantle that crap. Because eventually it's going to be neutralized and turned into other products on a technological level people don't understand on Earth. Because it's just destructive. There's no constructive use for a radioactive isotope that's been deliberately refined and made into a bomb-grade ore for bombs. There just isn't. It takes 10 times more money to run a nuclear power plant than natural gas, which burns clean. They won't put natural gas plants in because it makes a lot of money using spent rods originally they used it using spent rods in reactors to get bomb grade ore. They can refine it from uranium, other things now without going through that process, but it's still pointless because they can manufacture an imbalanced isotope that'll kill anybody if it gets out of its little lead-lined container. But they don't know how to turn it off and neutralize it and put it back to a balanced isotope that won't do that. How stupid is that?
I was going to say, what kind of insanity is that?
Why wouldn't they have developed the ability to turn it back in case it got out of control, which it's out of control now? Now, beings from other worlds know this, of course. So knowing this can become common knowledge for people on Earth. It can become common knowledge for me, where it's not surprising to me. It can be that way for any other human being, under the right circumstances, with the right experience. So I would have to say that the way that this is being done, this world transformation, is not through the overt landing of masses of ships, taking everybody over and telling them to behave. It's through beings who travel the stars, who can get in and out of their bodies at will from birth, who know who they are, that isn't a physical body, that pilot such craft, that can help people who are trained and know how to do it, to recover enough of what they once knew before they were forced to be born here with no memory, so that they start making proper decisions with each other, governmentally and worldwide. And then at some point, you can have that massive landing come here and really change this place. In the Savior's Agenda book, the second half of it practically is about the future. It's not a predicted psychic book, but it is about what's coming.
Excuse me.
And it's about the way in it which it will be done.
It's a great book. I couldn't
So
find
if you can ground that understanding in people here, then they don't have the terror and the fear of how it's going to be done. That goes away. They begin to get what's in that book in their own dreams at night when they're out of body. Government people, you think they don't watch this show? Or one with Perry? Videos from Finland? You think they have never watched this stuff? Of course they do. They know from day one, my work is about helping them too. Because what's been done to them to make them tyrants wasn't done of their own free will. Don't think that. It's not correct. People on Earth begin to understand what was done to everyone, that the revenge and hatred and anger drops away. There's all the negative emotion that keeps them stuck, drops away. And then they can start to use their higher faculties again, which do not work at all with negative emotions or imagination. So that's
positive emotions are okay, correct?
Excuse me?
Positive emotions are.
No, I don't call them positive and negative because people on Earth don't really understand what positive and negative is. They think of it as good and bad. But that only works in the energies that run the 4 lower dimensions. When you get above what some religions on Earth, Buddhist monks included, call the void, it's called these planes, and then there's this big void area. This is above the physical universe. Quantum physicists know it's there. They can prove it. They just don't know how to access it or anything. But there's this void, and it's not empty, but it appears that way to an Atma moving through it. If you have enough light and energy to cross it, you go into whole dimensions that are above that are pure positive. They don't work off the duality, the positive and negative stream, which traps the Atma in bodies here. It's a failed experiment. It backfired. Beings get trapped in bodies, caught in one side or the other of those 2 streams, and they're busy imagining positive and negative all day long and grounding themselves to the earth in a body. They're doing it to themselves. Tyrants know that. It keeps people just trapping themselves all the time. And then tyrants can manipulate whatever they want people to do. Stay at work, pay taxes, do whatever you want. But don't let them know the truth about what they know, that extraterrestrials are in great abundance out there and coming here. Classified. Under treaty. One of the things people on Earth did was get themselves in bed, really not at any fault of their own to a large degree, with tyrant extraterrestrial race, because the race that we got this technology from, we're enjoying here after World War II, did not come from the good guys. It was provided in some ways so that it could be reverse engineered, made into products and whatever, all classified. Because they didn't require that we give up nuclear weapons or radioactive materials. They didn't care. They didn't care if they blow ourselves up. They just take the resources anyway. So you see, that's how this came about. And there were agreements made with good races too, but people on Earth wanted the technology for weapons. They want anti-gravity ships to somehow make them threats to each other or weaponize them in some way. That was the thinking that came out of World War II, wasn't it? Absolutely. Can't blame them really, but the way people were thinking before World War II was influenced from off-planet also, especially Hitler and his SS scientists. They were illegally being influenced from off-planet. And the idea was to use him to kill off 3/4 of the population of this planet, which he was planning. He was starting to carry it out.
Wow.
It wasn't just Jews, no. And he lost. But the plan was already underway. It wasn't just the United States and other countries that defeated these people. There was the influence of good beings from other worlds that helped, because people were being influenced illegally from off-planet in a negative way. And that breaks an off-world treaty. Tyrants do things covertly. Benevolent beings do not. I'm going to say that again. Tyrants do things covertly, behind the scenes, sneaking around corners, so they can't be seen. Because if they're seen, they'll be stopped from off-planet. And they are often stopped. Benevolent beings aren't deliberately hiding out in space and not coming here. They know that the way people are right now and the way they've been manipulated to think and believe is so wrong that people would react in terror and violence if they just landed and said, we're the good guys.
I'm afraid that's
You got to get people free of that terror and fear subconsciously first. It's practical. So it's not that they're keeping themselves aloof, it's that the people couldn't accept the real truth and what they are and what they offer, or how we could become a world playing among the stars with other advanced races. We could have been doing that 60 years ago. They refused.
That's sad.
Partially because they were terrorized about even the good guys they met with, whether their motives was real after World War II and Hitler and all that kind of stuff. And also because they were being influenced with the misuse of a device on some tyrant waste they carried that would influence the subconscious of a leader of this world without affecting their intelligence or personality or sense of humor. But it would affect what decisions they made, like signing a treaty with the wrong people. This was done to them. They know it was done to them, but they had no technology or any way to undo it. All that implant stuff they were doing under the skin, reverse engineered craft and all that stuff during the heyday of gray abductions and all that.
Yeah.
Those were just the military industrial complex trying to make things and test it on people to undo what was done to them. And it doesn't work because the implants that are controlling them aren't under the skin or in their brain, in the back of the neck. It's an energy field surrounding them as a being. Tyrants can't harm what makes up the energy of an animal, can't destroy it, but they can create an artificial energy around it through which the being looks and misunderstands almost everything.
Well, apparently they were able to capture it somehow to be able to put this energy field around it. Is that right?
Before you were born on this earth, in history you do not remember.
I'm working on that.
Yeah. Because people didn't originate on this planet. Human beings did not evolve on this planet. From the amoebas, and then they became fish, and the fish walked upright, and then they became... That's just theory. They
That's
teach that
so.
at universities to kids so they can be teachers of theory, and they don't know anything. None of it's true.
That's crazy. I never.
No, it isn't true. For a long time, they tried to say that we came from Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal.
Yes.
What do you call humanoid type beings that ran their course and were done away with on this planet. We did not evolve from them.
Yeah.
Human beings in this form have been like this for several billion years out in the galaxies. They didn't evolve originally on Earth in this genetic form. Some human beings had 4-stranded DNA, not 2. Human beings on Earth have 2-stranded DNA with some of the billion genomes that are switches shut off. For a long time, they used to call that junk DNA. Now they know it isn't. It's just off. They don't know how to turn it on or off. They're learning. If you want to live 1,000 years in a body, there's a switch on the genome you turn on. You can set it. And this will live 1,000 years with no disease.
Is that with frequency that you would say?
Turn other genomes off, the one that's prone toward cancer, or turn it on, and your immune system will never allow it. You turn it off, you're vulnerable. They don't want you living more than 80 years plus, give or take. Tyrants. Tyrants who live 800 want you living less than them if they capture you. And humans live 1,000 to 10,000 years or more in a single body in other worlds. So covertly versus open honesty. Anything that's covert, anything that justifies lying to everyone else to maintain a power center or a complex of industry or anything like that is working in a negative stream of energy that's been manipulated them into it. Because they all know it's wrong. They can't stop doing it, and they want to.
How do they get out?
Most people I've met, ex-DOD and people that are no longer in the highly classified arena, retired, want to know the truth too. They're not given it all. They're given compartmentalized pieces of it depending on how half the structure they are. And they know there's a lot more going on, but they're never shown it. They know a lot more than public. They don't know the whole picture. As long as that system exists on this planet, then you're not going to have a world that's going to be accepted to play among the stars. Ever. Under any circumstances. And there are people in control on this planet now in a highly classified arena who are beginning to understand that they know that now. They're going to have to play ball a different way if they want to go out there and be Star Trek, except without radioactive warp cores, that kind of silly. But that's the way people thought about it. Roddenberry, people thought about current science projected in the future with radioactive materials, and that's how they thought about it. So they just imagined it in the future. Common sense would tell you you would not want to go racing around the galaxy in ships that, if they leak, would poison everybody with radioactivity.
Yeah.
But,
Well.
no. So none of that's factored.
That's what I'm playing.
People in the militaries here that are being trained to fly some anti-gravity ships and go on the backside of the moon, maybe to Mars and around. They're not going to be allowed to travel outside this solar system. And in some cases, they're restricted from flying in certain areas in it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Because space is already occupied. I'm sorry to say it, though, not really. Space is already occupied by more advanced races almost universally than we are here.
That's kind of like Columbus didn't really discover America.
No, the conquistadors came here first 500 years earlier or something. Southwest of the United States and came up through Mexico, and they were here long before Columbus was here. And then, of course, Vikings had dropped off here a couple of times before that. Atlanteans, and before that, Lemurians, and so forth and so on. Back in a history, people have no idea even existed on this planet. Their own planet, for crying out loud.
Well, the one that really surprised me was the Sumerians. That was a reptilian mind colony, isn't that
Pretty much, yeah. Tyrants. They were made to worship these guys in spacesuits, and they were reptilian. They carved them right in their tablets. The thing about the Sumerians that was interesting is because it's before Egyptian religion or any of that, or Christianity. When they saw something, they would depict it accurately as they saw it, without all the, ooh, the chariot's carrying the pharaoh, will cross the river Styx into the dead, and all that stuff. They never flowered it up that way. They just write what it was. So when you look at these tablets and you interpret, you can see that there is a tyrant making them kneel, worship them, same as in Yucatan and Aztec and Mayan. Those were little guys brought here to mine for people from other planets. Slaves, discarded when they're done with them. Some were just took them somewhere else to slave. The whole culture just disappears.
So it appears that
they were allowed to do this. Look, I don't even know why I bother telling people this, because it's so far outside their range of experience, but eventually they're going to remember it anyway, sooner or later. Under a treaty that happened at the end of a great war in our galaxy, Earth was, because of a number of reasons, made like a Switzerland. It means it was like no one race could dominate it, control it, take it over, good or bad, tyrant race or benevolent, huge world systems. And so it was kind of policed in a way. But races were allowed to have small colonies, scientific. They weren't supposed to interfere with the cultures that evolved there. They could bring their own people there, in tyrants' case, slaves, usually human of some nature, to do all the dirty work, get rare space minerals and things off the planet. And there were good cultures on this planet all through its history. Lemuria was one. For a time, Atlantis, what people call Atlantis, goes back much further than the one that sank 35,000 years ago through the misuse of science. It's way back before that. And cultures way back before that, because this planet's poles flipped overnight every 100,000 years, destroying the surface completely. And if you couldn't get off in a ship, sayonara, you're done. Then it had to be recolonized. Plants, animals, mammals, people. It was like a scientific oddity, because the planets of this poles, unlike other worlds, would flip over every cyclically. Wow. And on the molten core, it would cause the oceans to rise, continents to sink. And it's violent and happens virtually overnight.
That must have been
Ice Age after that.
Terrifying. That must have been terrifying.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't survive it, and most things didn't. Earth, when it first became capable of sustaining life, oceans and water and atmosphere, there was the experiment of dinosaurs brought here from other worlds and made enormously big. They basically would have eaten themselves to death anyway, the size they were. Mm-hmm. They'd eaten all the foliage off the planet or eaten each other as meat eaters. They were on their way out anyway, so they were done away with. And after that, people from other worlds could come here without the threat of them, colonize, bring with them their understanding of higher dimensions, what people would call spirituality. Back then, there was no war, so there wasn't a threat from tyrant extraterrestrials, and it evolved into that later on. There's a planet that was destroyed with one bomb between Mars and Jupiter. Some people on Earth call it Maldek, spelled with a K or a C on the end. Mm-hmm. But it had three basic races on it, mostly militaristic, not necessarily bad. One of them was pretty much a tyrant. And the influence of a being from another world who was very negative encouraged one of the leaders to set off an experimental bomb just for power over their leaders, and it would destroy the whole planet. It causes matter to chain react from the center of the planet outward. It just blew up. Planet goes around the sun at a very high rate of speed in miles per hour. Planet blows up in big chunk and go to Mars, wipe out the atmosphere. Another one can come by and hit the Earth and unstabilize it. Plus, you've got a planet now that was in a position in orbit around the sun, keeping everything else in balance, that now spreads out at this speed and eventually stretches out to form the asteroid field between Mars and Jupiter that was a planet. People on Earth don't understand how that got here. wasn't just a failed moon that didn't somehow magnetically suck itself together into a planet. Now it blew out this way. So Earth has been flipping its poles for some time. And in recent years, the past prophesied Armageddon destructive destiny for this planet has been permanently altered. Not by people on Earth. Not even by the Galactic Alliance. Beings much higher than they are, that run the mechanics of creation itself, have gotten involved and stopped the flipping of the poles of this planet permanently.
Oh, thank God for that.
Otherwise, we can't evolve here for hundreds of millions of years safely like beings in other worlds have been able to do. People from other stars know this. So that's one thing that's in our favor that no one expected. And, in time, the public will be disclosed the truth about this because it's been classified in the beginning days of the Cold War with Gorbachev under détente, when they knew the poles of this planet flipped. I even saw it come out on a TV show as a half-an-hour documentary, and then it was classified. You couldn't even get a copy of it the next day.
The next day?
Yeah, no.
Oh.
Because they used oil technology and drilled down in the deepest places on Earth. This was a first joint scientific thing between what was the Soviet Union and the United States. Mm-hmm. They didn't say what prompted them to do this, but they would drill down in Death Valley and the Arabian Desert, wherever they called it, and then Mongolia and Siberia. And they'd pull these big chunks of dirt miles out, and they compact it. They put them in a centrifuge, and they would find out which way the magnetic fields of the planet were going.
Oh, that's how
now, up to about 180 to 120,000 years ago, they wouldn't stake their exact dates because they're theorists, but the poles of the planet were going 180 degrees opposite of what they are today.
Wow.
In one disk worldwide at one depth. That was okay, but then when they dug deeper, they found out it was cyclic. And they classified it immediately. Wow. So because they knew another one was coming.
Do you know what? I think that I didn't know at the time, and this happened a number of years ago. I had an experience, like I was in a meditative state, and I had a flash, because sometimes I see movies in meditation. But anyway, I was with someone, and I was dressed as, the white tunic type, Greek-looking type.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And someone I was with was hurt, and I was sitting there, and I remember I was looking off in the distance, and I saw this. It was like, it was probably the beginning of the pole flipping. I mean, it was a massive, either that or it was a huge earthquake. I don't know, but I know that that body died.
Well, that was, I'm not going to try to put words in your mouth, but it's likely back in what people on Earth today call Lemriel or Mu.
Oh, okay.
That was a huge continent that centered over the equator.
Mm-hmm.
Right, you could actually trace on a globe the ring of fire. If you want to know how big Lemuria was and where it was,
mm-hmm.
You got to turn the poles upside down, first of all, or you're going to get all mixed up. You're going to think it's out in the Mediterranean, or Atlantis was over here and Atlantis was over there, and everybody gets confused because they're not thinking properly about how to first flip the planet the other way, then try to locate something that used to be where it was. Okay, so, but anyway, it was centered over the equator, about left to right hemisphere. If you trace a ring from the Philippines up through Thailand and China, Kamchatka Peninsula, Russia, over the Siberian Strait to Alaska and down the Ring of Fire, western coast of the United States, which is all volcanic and active, down through the Andes and down through South America and back clear across to the Philippines, that's the Ring of Fire. That was roughly the shape of Lemuria.
Wow.
Huge, because the lands rose up there. This is where these tectonic plates formed. And where the oceans were, where it was, sank. It's like they counterbalance each other. On the other side of the planet was a huge continent, 2/3 the size, called Atlantis, or I don't remember how. I guess that's a good enough name for now. I mean, we could do it in ancient Greek or Latin or something, but for Western culture, just call it Atlantis, and it was nearly independent. It was a colony.
Mm-hmm.
These were the two big landmasses on the planet. They both sank completely in that catastrophe.
Yeah.
What was left was about a 500-mile square volcanic island that survived when the new continents rose up. And it was over by the Bermuda Triangle area, actually. Flip the planet around, take another look.
Wow.
Then you can determine where these places really were before relative to continents today. And so it survived in over 70,000 years, so 100,000 years ago. It became the colonizing seafaring power on Earth that used science and eventually sank their island. It had nothing to do with the original, going back 100,000 years. It's a history people don't remember yet here. And people had lives at different points along that 100,000-year period that was extraterrestrially colonized. When they lived at the beginning of it, 30,000 years into it, 50, 60, 70, 90, when it sank, and they had lives of experience along that time track. One person will remember Lemriel in the middle of it, 50,000 years into it, and say it was like this. Another person will remember it 90,000 years and say it was like that. Some will remember, though it's rare, coming here in ships to colonize it, humans from other worlds. Others, like yourself and myself, and initially, remember dying there. Or then were, there and then ceased, that body was lost during that catastrophe. So you have different people confused, talking about where they think this and that was and what life they lived in, but all of it's true. They've just got to stretch it over a much longer period of time and understand they were living in experiences all along that. And then after that, all along up to now, mostly not on this planet. And then they find themselves on Earth with no memory, thinking they originated here incorrectly. So there's a whole ancient history of Earth and our solar system and the Milky Way galaxy and other galaxies and creation itself and other dimensions parallel and higher that people are not able to access, because knowing and understanding multidimensional awareness requires being awake and aware as an atma, not a body, and knowing it in order to function and utilize all those faculties. If you think you're a body, you sure don't have access to any of that, not consciously.
Most people do too.
And yet people retain the ability to put their body in the trance state called sleep every night with the least amount of effort. And they're actually a being doing that to that body. The body just doesn't go to sleep. The being puts it in this state unconsciously. It knows perfectly well how to make the pineal gland secrete serotonin and melatonin. I'm trying to get this across to people so they can understand just how much they need to remember. Start there, because it's a good place to start.
Wow.
There's histories, and then there's histories. There are dimensions, and then there are dimensions. In the physical universe, there's 144 parallel dimensions. Whole universes, Earths existing in different frequencies, not quite like here, some very different, until you get to, and there's a limited number, it isn't infinite as people think, quantum physics. It isn't just forever many planes you can never, no, there's a structure to it. At least the existence of the multidimensional creation that exists now as it is. And then there's a barrier, kind of like a channel that moves one higher energy to a lower frequency between what people call the astral plane and the physical. And it's made of a different matter, the entire 144 planes of the astral plane. The two don't mix. You can't take a physical body into the astral and vice versa. Mm-hmm. The atma can move between them because it's not made of matter and it isn't governed by physics. It can move in the energy that connects them all. Pretty clever. And you go up to the causal and the mental and etheric, and then you've got this big void thing that it takes a certain amount of conscious awareness to cross, because it's a barrier that keeps this experiment of what we call evil, good and bad, positive, negative, maya, separated from where we all originated and created this mess down here. What did I say? The beings that are on Earth and all the beings out in the universe and all the beings in the different planes are responsible as Atmas, not bodies, for the failed experiment of evil in the lower dimensions. It backfired big time.
Yeah, it sure did.
It's never worked, and what you'd call spiritual adepts from other worlds have been working tirelessly for eons of time just to get a few people over lifetimes out of this trap. And it doesn't really work statistically.
Didn't you say that it also, because of the frequencies that were put around the Atma, it masked our
what you call your energy signature, yes. Which means if you were caught by an alien in a war a long time ago and used as a political prisoner, tortured, killed, they can't harm the Atma. They know what it is, tyrants, but they can't do anything. So they create something misusing technology they've stolen and abused, perverted, to take some being, some political prisoner usually, and stick them in a body against their will on Earth and tell them to compulsively reincarnate. They don't even need guard towers because it's subconscious. A person looks through an energy field, they think they're looking right at the universe. They're seeing all these colored lenses of distorted terror and fear that keep them in terror of who they are and how to run their higher faculties. Because the basic program is, if you try to remember who you are and tell on us, we'll eat you alive again, put you in a, this will happen to you again. Of course, it won't.
You can't kill me anyway.
Well, the point is, it can't happen to people again. Mm-hmm. That's over and done with. That's never going to be possible. Oh, but people on Earth all over the planet are left with the effect of such programming. And they don't even know it. They think it's God's will. That they're here with no memory, can't remember another life, or even what they are. That's what they call soul. So glibly, I guess is the right word. They just sputter out this word and have this eternal soul. They don't know what it is or where it is. They think they're a body and they've got a soul somewhere tucked away somewhere that's going to pop out somewhere. And that's, you know, that's something they think the body owns. They got it completely backwards.
So how would they know? Yeah, they have, nobody has, I mean, you have.
They're not going to know.
I had no idea.
They're not brought up on a planet being taught this from childhood, and it would make the most sense. Are you taught growing up on Earth it's normal to leave your body and go play with Aunt Matilda and Uncle Fred on another planet when your body's asleep and come back with all that wisdom and help your culture? See, that's the way normal worlds work.
Yeah. And you'd actually be criticized or punished for daydreaming, for example, in a classroom.
Yeah, well, I mean, what they were trying to teach me was so boring and so useless. In eternity, it's like, give me a break. I'm going to daydream. You know. Yeah. Probably the most brilliant people who had some insight into the fact that something was done to them, but they couldn't quite put a finger on it, were the daydreamers. Daydreamers are the inventors also.
That's interesting.
Different degrees of suppression in different ways. Some people have semi-photographic memories or eidetic memories, but they couldn't save themselves from a herd of turtles. It comprehend the rest of the multidimensional universe is brilliant. They could be physicists, but they can't even think that way. And yet they can remember all the math instantly, and or play a piano, because they're shut down in other ways and open in. It's random.
Ah, okay.
They're really not awake as beings.
Wow.
As a person begins to recover who and what they were and can use higher faculties, their IQ goes through the roof, way off what planet Earth can even measure, because it's not limited to a brain. We have 100% developed brain in human bodies on this Earth. It isn't futuristic. And then we're told we only use 6 to 10% of it. Wow. That's because the being who's running it no longer remembers how to run the rest of it. Just enough to keep it alive and running around. Put it to sleep at night, but don't remember you're doing it. Stuff like that. Well, we actually use 100%, or we can, when certain genomes are turned on. So that isn't a block. And when the being running the body is aware it's a being running the body and what it is and what it looks like and how to move it around, then it can start using 100%. And start working higher faculties through a physical body, which isn't what it is. You are not the body you have. I'm not this body. I run it on Earth. I also run bodies on other dimensions at the same time, living separate lives from this one. One in the astral plane, causal, mental, and etheric. I have whole lives there, different from here. And as one being, like a sun or a moon or a planet, spherical energy with a structure. I'm not made of matter. I'm capable of running bodies to gain experience in these different levels. The astral is emotion. All emotion comes from there. The mental above the causal is mental. All thought comes from there. It doesn't come from the brain in your head. How are you going to solve people's mental problems giving them drugs that suppress symptoms if you don't even understand that the mind is not in the brain between their ears?
That's big. That's big.
It's a device. It's a mechanism with 1 billion brain cells to run the coordination of a body, growing it up and learning how to speak and communicate what the Atma is saying through the mouth. More advanced Atmas, of course, that are awake can speak any language there is instantly. A person with 100% use of their brain could do the same thing. It just means that more of the brain allows more to come through from the being that can actually do it, which isn't the brain. It's a kicker when you start getting into this, because you start waking up, it's not reversible. The new ray and the hue, I work with the omnipresent hue all the time, didn't originate on Earth, was not invented by any being on this planet. It was in the beginning before the lower dimensions were created, time and space, and Maya and illusion and all that. And we were all part of it. Not the body, the Atma. It did not come into existence in time and space. Therefore, it is not relative to the limit of age, billions of years. It is before that. And we are all responsible for this experiment of evil. We can't blame it on a Satan or some fallen angel anymore, because we're on Earth with no memory. What does that mean? Does it mean we're a fallen angel? No, not really. That's just a term people have slapped on something they don't understand.
Yeah, that's good.
It means that we have been made to forget what we once were and what our purpose for existing is. To recover that, a person has to be aware that their destiny as a being is to co-create with the source itself, where we came from. A being that runs a human body is developed to the point where they can become a co-creator consciously with that source. Why? Because while we're running around here running bodies and not trapped in them, the experiment of science and other things on a spiritual level can be conducted, so we can come up with new ways of doing things, bring it back to that source, what people call the Supreme Being, be trusted with it and download it, because the Supreme Source does not know everything. It doesn't know the future because we haven't created it yet, collectively. And we're responsible, all of us, as the Atma, not the human body, for doing something about this failed experiment by replacing it with something that actually works, to motivate people to create with the source and be trusted with it. There is no being up in the highest worlds above the void. People call the Supreme Being, what advanced races from the stars call Prime Creator, the source.
I like that better.
There's no being sitting on a throne there looks like a human being. It looks like a sphere. And we look just like it. We are made of exactly the same energy on a smaller scale, pure, like a drop of pure water in a mighty ocean of it. In the higher worlds, there's a place that looks like that.
And when you're dealing with Atmas, then you're not having this issue with different human bodies that are a different race, a different sex, a different...
No, because you work for the right reason, collectively. Beings on other worlds that are normal, countless hundreds of millions of them, I know of personally, in just our galaxy, a quarter of our galaxy alone. And that isn't the other side of the galaxy where they're all wonderful too, except for a few tyrant races which are being dealt with as we speak anyway, for the first time, permanently.
Oh, wow.
In a nice way. They're not going to be killed. That's not it.
Well, that's better.
Beings who understand what they are that isn't the body can run around in advanced craft, basically for the benefit of races that don't yet have that development. they can go from here, from Nerexalum, the planet I came from, in recent times in this galaxy. Came from Andromeda before that, and then way out before that, and then up from higher planes. So they can go from that planet 500 light years away to Earth instantly as an Atma and carry out some function and talk with beings of their association who have ships around the Earth that have bodies in those ships who can also get out of their bodies. There's no limits. Or they can take a ship across the stars from there to here in one of their medium little transports, go from in about 7 hours from 500 light years away to Earth. And they have much faster ships than that. But they'll usually take people who are trying to wake them up, get them back into thinking on these levels and working that way on a ship in a slow way to get them acclimatized and accustomed to things. They don't have to go that slow. It's this technology and understanding that Earth people in any classified, I don't care how high up the Illuminati or anything they are, they could not comprehend it. It is not possible for them to comprehend or utilize it, thinking and being the way they are now. Because that kind of deception on the public blocks their higher faculties. They could have a high IQ, they could have 4 PhDs, they could work for the government, they could be a classified scientist and no extraterrestrial exist, but they're not really working on all thrusters.
Still, wow.
So that's a problem. Most of them are aware of that now. What they're confused about and getting less confused every day is how to disclose to the public in a way that will be safe for all life on this planet, including their own. Because that's the only way it can be done.
Yeah.
Intelligent being who's rational and you get off the planet, start thinking outside of that trap, you begin to understand and see it clearly how it has to be done. It's not confusing at all. It's the only way it can be done without terror and destruction in the streets. People in government classified freaking out and going at it with each other and people rioting. None of that needs to happen. If the primary implant that's been imposed on people on this planet, even on some animals,
really,
is neutralized or shut off, then people can be brought into this change in a swift, elevating, non-destructive manner. But it can't be done from people on Earth. They don't have the consciousness or the elevation to even approach doing it. It's going to have to come from kind people who aren't trapped here like we are, who have the technology and the people, the masses of beings, and not just them, but their master teachers that go between different dimensions, focusing on changing this world. It would have been destroyed already had they not intervened to some degree, limited degree, to save us from destroying ourselves, because they tried. So you see, when I tell people I'm not worried about the future of this planet, I really mean it. I'm not. And yet people are running around in terror all day long about this stuff, living their years out in this frustrating, I don't know. Afraid of the future. North Korea, oh, now it's Iran. Well, when that's done, we'll go somewhere else, to divert the attention of people, to keep them negatively entertained, let's put it that way. None of it has anything to do with anything that matters.
That's sad.
Not on a galactic level. Earth is going to have to take its place among the stars by growing up and being normal human beings first. And then it will be given to all the technology to get around how to use it will not be deprived people on Earth at all. And they won't have to pay money for it. There will be no cost involved, because that's not how they work.
I like it that they don't have money on other planets.
Well, the higher planets don't, because it's just used by tyrants to enslave people, to condition them to something that has no value.
What do they just manifest whatever they need? Is that how that works? Or?
They do have that, but no, they trade, but not a tit for a tat. Barter system will never work. It's just a form of money.
Yeah, that's the same thing as money. That's
coins, all that stuff. I mean, it's just another form of money.
Yeah, it is.
You can call it dollar bills or bitcoins. I don't care. It's just digits in a computer. And US money or any other money, it's bark from a tree, like toilet paper is made from the same thing. Think on it and press and set an official tender for debts, public and private. Give it to the people, and they'll exchange it all day and give each other food and everything else. But there's no gold or silver behind it. There's nothing of value behind it except the word of the government.
It's just like the idea of bartering. If you happen to have a person with a lot of resources, you're obviously, how's that any different than having a lot of money?
It's not. It doesn't work, and it never will. Somebody who has 50 sheep and you have one dog and a cat, you're going to be you're not going to be in a very good negotiating position. And if the guy wants your land to give you 5 sheep, he's going to get your land. That's a barter system. Tyrant kings used that. It didn't work. It'll never work.
Is there any such thing as land ownership on other planets?
Well, it's still an illusion, but you have to become a U.S. citizen. Not when you grow up with like a birth certificate, now you're a U.S. citizen. You have to actually get deed from the government to own land that cannot be liened, and the IRS can't touch it. And only a certain group of people through lawyers in D.C. at about an $80,000 cost. You have to own your land free and clear. You can become you're like your own country within the country. They're not going to want most people to know about that one. It's on the books.
Wow.
Most people couldn't afford it or understand it or get there anyway. So why talk about it? Basically the government still owns all the land. If you own a piece of property and you have a deed of trust or title, in other words, you have to get title from the government to that land, not a deed of trust. Because otherwise they inherently still have control over all the land, eminent domain and all that.
Yeah.
You own it, but you still have to pay land tax every year and sewer and water. You get caught and you really never own it.
Exactly.
If you pay those taxes every year, even after you own it, you can lose it. Yeah. You see, it's really not what people think it is. And then when people grow old and die, they can't take it with them anyway, so they pass it on to their heirs. And it gets perpetuated. But if push came to shove, according to what's on the books, probably even in the Constitution, the government wanted to take your land or justify it as being national security interest, or it's classified because of what's under the ground, they can move you off, pay you fair value, kick you out, or run a highway through it.
Yeah.
To get title. From the government, not from your local state or bank. Anyway, that's just a whole nother level of elitism and how they work. At some point, it won't matter because people will not possess things that way. The land, the earth belongs to itself. Nobody owns it. We live on it freely, no walls, no fences. You get at least 20 acres per person spread out all over a planet. There would be no congested cities or metropolises. Polluted sewage systems, polluting our water, polluting the ocean, radioactive materials in the air. That's easy stuff to neutralize for friends I know of. On a planetary scale, they could just do it in a day.
Wow.
It's just higher science. They know how to do it. Take all the cars on Earth and turn them into useful products, molecularly transform the molecules.
Wow.
We can have that, but not the way we are. Not the way we are now. Until this world is free of deceit and dishonesty, this will remain a quarantined solar system for the next 10,000 years. You think they're going to evolve and go play among the stars. We're going to go to the moon, Vice President says, and all this. But we really are being held back from doing that. Classified outside this planet in our solar system to a degree. Another race has taken a group to another planet and solar system on their ships. We didn't get there on our own. And I wouldn't have gone to that planet with those people in the first place because they're royalty kind of thing. So yeah, no. Anyway, that's the way treaties are made, and it's usually done to get something from other races, usually extraterrestrial technology that would advance militaries and weapons. And maybe side effects of that would be jobbed out from the military industrial complex to make microwaves and fiber optics and computers and other useful products, etc., which we didn't invent on this planet. Not originally, not completely. We were given elements from either shot down or given craft and technologies to reverse engineer in order to do that. In order to reverse engineer technology from other planets, you have to, after World War II, they had to create a classified system, a different money system, a different way of funding things that could be continually worked on and funded despite who was the president in any 4 or 8 years, over decades and decades. That requires a separate kind of government that only certain people are allowed to know about in Washington who are lawyers. That's the way that works. And that's okay for a time. But the original bylaws, or how it was written under Truman, was to eventually disclose all this to the public when they felt the public wouldn't riot in the streets with fear of aliens after World War II. That's how it started. Fear in the president, terror in the leaders of this country and in others. Dealing with something they had no way to deal with it, way more advanced than us. They didn't know if they had ulterior motives or were good or not. They knew totalitarians probably had ulterior motives. And they met with the good guys too from other races, and they didn't. They didn't trust either one of them. For someone to make a treaty with a totalitarian race to get extraterrestrial technology just because they didn't care if we gave up nuclear weapons was the wrong thing to do. And for someone to do that, they had to be influenced against their better judgment to do it, even against their own terror. It was done in both the former Soviet Union and United States at the same time, both places. They played one against the other, illegally, from off-planet. So you see, it has no future. It can't come to a fruition the way they've been planning it all these years. There is no future in space. And there never will be the way they are now, the way they're running this world. That's never going to happen. And they're basically blocked from going outside the solar system. They're being encouraged to tell the people the truth here, and they want to, but they got to do it in a way that will result in a peaceful transformation. That's what my message is about, is why I do it. It's the only reason I do any of this. That's why I'm here.
Well, we're glad you're here, Scott. I'm sure you don't.
It's difficult for people to understand how to do anything without having money involved, because they're surrounded and corralled by it on this planet. That's understandable. And they need to use it until nobody wants it anymore on this planet. That day will come. People won't even want to touch it. They won't be motivated by it anymore. People in other worlds grow up in, I'd say many humans on worlds I know, by the time they're 10, have the equivalent of 10 PhDs to people on this planet.
Wow.
They're photographic memories. We all do, but they're suppressed. They're telepathic. That's not psychic. It runs from the energy from beyond the void, from being to being, through the energy that underlies everything that is not psychic, and it is not physics. It is not nuclear. Atoms and protons, electrons, and those kinds of things. When a being is telepathic, they're actually connecting as a being, the white core, to other beings through this medium. And it's instantaneous because it is not governed by the laws of physics or lower matter frequencies. So the connection is instantaneous. So when I go into the hue and I tell you this is telepathic, and I'm doing it with beings from other worlds, even in ships hovering around the atmosphere of this planet, men and women, at least 2 of them out of 4 couples on these ships, sits in the back of the ship, closes their eyes and leaves their body and joins us on these journeys. You're not going to see them on radar or shoot them down. They're shifted out of phase. They're in another dimension, really. Out of radar range and detection. Missiles wouldn't hurt them, pass right through them. Some kind of psychotronic beam wouldn't do anything. Nothing. So they're not here to interfere and run governments. They're here to help change people that do and the public into something that is not insane anymore.
That would be nice.
So we can be trusted, and that's all it really is about. And I've been saying this for some years now, but this is the kind of message that is being delivered to hidden leaders on this planet. It isn't about their destruction. We don't care about that. It's about getting people free so that they can start being who they are. That isn't a body, and start running bodies properly so they can go out and play among the stars with beings who do this.
It would be so much more wonderful for everyone.
And of course, old habits die hard in people that don't even know how they were manipulated to keep those habits running. They're terrorized of giving up the truth to the public. And they're being compelled in that direction in as gentle a way as possible because it has to happen. And we don't want any destruction. Nobody I know wants to create death and destruction and take all these misdirected leaders and put them up against a wall and shoot them all. They wouldn't behave that way if something wasn't done to them first in a more controlling manner than was later done to the public, or that was done to the public even before they were born here and they're shoved in a body. All kinds of scenarios. It wasn't until fairly recently that people in what I call the Galactic Alliance were able to detect the undersea signatures that were masked by beings who trapped Atlas in bodies on this earth against their will. And they're starting to find people and discover old friends and people that disappeared a long time ago in history, trying to get the record straight. It's a whole thing. It's not just about Earth. It's not just about the petty interests of people on this planet. It's about the kind of transformation going on in other worlds you don't know about, and in parallel dimensions that are diabolical, and out in the universe itself. It's taking place on an interdimensional, galactic interdimensional way, on a multi-dimensional way. It's all connected.
So it's all this is big.
Yeah, it's never happened before. It's changing the destiny of creation itself. From the experiment of evil, retiring like the dinosaur and putting something in place that actually works. So we don't know where creation will go from here. All the dimensions are in place, all the governors in place, all the worlds, the galaxies, the suns, the moons. In the past, that whole lower system was destroyed. 4 lower dimensions, and the beings taken up above the void, and it was rebuilt, and the experiment of evil started again. It's happened several times, and it doesn't change anything. It doesn't fix anything. The same trap just perpetuates the same thing. So doing it again would be a form of insanity for the beings that hang out in the upper worlds. Because nothing's changing. And
yeah.
So the problem wasn't really changing people unconscious in the physical universe. The problem was getting beings in the upper worlds who maintain this system to have a more expanded consciousness, to want to change it. And to find that out, you have to travel as the Atma into the upper worlds and return like you're meant to. To return with a new way of doing things that you've learned over billions of years that will help change it. And if it's brought up there and then tested down here, like a wave that goes through all the 4 lower dimensions and comes back like dropping a pebble in a pond of water, and that circle goes out to the edge of the pond, then it comes back. If whatever is brought up there to change things here works, it will come back to that source point above the void as true, necessary, and kind. And if it fits all 3, then excitement happens and it's implemented. And that doesn't happen in every few billion years. It's rare. So that's part of how far up this rabbit hole goes, and then out into space, spacefaring races, and then the Say rays that are even more evolved than that, and then other races more evolved than them, and so forth and so
on. Wow. There's a lot of races out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't do anybody any good for me to begin to number them or tell people how many, because it's just, to comprehend it all, you got to be out of your body in the Atma form, and you can understand it. As a brain grown up on Earth and a body here, you could not. That would not be possible. The human brain in one body is not designed to contain that kind of multidimensional information and understanding. The Atma can do it, the real you. The body you're running, no. You can condition it to take on more and more of that understanding.
Yeah.
But you have to be aware of that to bring it here first. See what I mean? So let's go on a little journey. And what I do is I begin to send out these tones, this primordial, it's an omnipresent, meaning that it's everywhere in creation in the multiverse. I guess a quantum physicist would call it a big quantum, and we're all little quantums in a big quantum. But the quantum, the big quantum, is everything, connecting everything. And it's not nuclear. Once quantum physicists get to the understanding, which I think they're getting to on Earth now, what they call the God particle that they found in the CERN super collider in Switzerland, is an energy that doesn't respond to the laws of physics the way they expect. It's behind it, before it, supporting it. It's not positive, it's not negative. It is pure, it is something else beyond that. And it fills the void of space. It fills the void between dimensions. It fills the big void many dimensions up from here. And it suspends the entire creation in this field of non-nuclear energy. It's the best way of putting it. When they start to get that understanding, they're going to be solving problems in physics and interstellar travel they never dreamed of. But it's got to come from a higher understanding or they're never going to get it. What I do is I ask people to be sitting down or laying down, their choice, of course. Take several deep breaths. And what you're doing when you breathe out is you're simply imagining, just like you do when you daydream, all your fears about the future. I don't care if it's chemtrails, inoculations, bad people, Illuminati, whatever it is. Reptilians, grays, tall whites, mantis people, people from other worlds, humans, humanoid, Nordic, whatever it might be. Just put it aside. Don't worry about it. Stick it on a little computer disk or something around your room in your imagination. Same way you'd imagine a beautiful hummingbird fly by a waterfall. Well, that's what you're doing with fear and terror. Apprehension, fear, doubt, theory, fear of the future, fear of your age, fear of death, fear of your body, fear of not knowing. You can't know. Any of those kinds of things are all negative. They have nothing to do with the real being that is you. Those are artificial. All negative emotions are artificially created by tyrants. They're not normal human emotions at all. Put them aside. And imagine someone you love and respect. You're grateful they're in your life. Now, this can be a person, place, or thing, a savior, anybody you look up to, but really anything that makes you feel smile inside and makes you glow, kind of just instantly without thinking about it. Because that will turn on this area of the pineal gland that you do every night, and you begin to put that body in the trance state called sleep. It's perfectly safe when I say trance. I don't mean anything negative. All you're doing is what you do every night anyway. And it'll begin to secrete serotonin and make melatonin, and your body will go into automatic. The lungs will work, the heart will work, the blood will pump, breathing's good. And then you can just put it there kind of in a trance state and then go on this journey. When you go out of body, from time to time, you can be aware of the physical body sitting in the chair. Or you can be completely unaware of it and be in another reality, or both simultaneously. All of it's okay. You don't need to limit the experience. You don't have to have it just be you're either completely out of your body and not aware of your physical body, or it's not working. That isn't how this works. That's just negative thinking, and you just block having a multidimensional experience. You should be able to feel your body or experience yourself above the earth in orbit around the planet as the Atma, as the sphere that's running that body, because it's not limited to time and space. It just isn't. The physical body is, and it's living on a planet in one molecular time rate. There are other Earths in the same space at a higher frequency that can be accessed when you know how to change your molecular time rate. Advanced races from the stars know how to do this personally, and they know how to do it in craft ships. Send out this statement. The words are constructed very precisely and designed by beings and friends I trust from other worlds that are very advanced, which we call master teachers. And I had a hand in them too, co-creator. But they don't just come from me. Here's what I do myself, even now, before we go on this journey. Here's what I send out. Realize you're sending this out through the pineal gland in a pure energy beam that cannot be affected by any positive and negative, any beings in or out of bodies, or any misuse of or negative use of extraterrestrial technology. This is a communication that goes on through eternity, cannot be affected by the lower dimensions or what's made in them. Here's what I send out. Safely show me deliberately hidden truth on a grand multi-dimensional scale, and the much greater knowing of the expansive love within it. Now, when you really contemplate on those words later, you'll understand how they're structured. It isn't selfish. It's not just for my good. It's so that we can recover having higher abilities and remembering our role creatively in eternity. By intentionally wanting to know this, to create new ways of doing things for the benefit of all life, not just life on Earth, all life in the grand multidimensional creation, which includes our benefit as well. It's important to know this when you send it out, or you won't get awakened to that kind of awareness. This omnipresent field of energy, what people call Holy Spirit, with a little understanding of what it really is a living force. It co-creates with what we imagine. So for an Atma who's fully awake, that being's going to create wondrous new things for the benefit of all life, and it will fulfill the requirements of personnel and energy to make that come into reality. That's our role, to co-create with that source this way and be trusted with it. Therefore, we have to know how to use the imagination, which is not made up in the brain, how to use what we choose to see properly for the benefit of all life. There's no other way to properly use the imagination. Because if you use it in a positive and negative way, in a lower way, you'll create equal but opposite things. It's like shorting out a battery and grounding it to the earth. It won't work. I begin these tones, which is filled or laced with this new ray of consciousness, new energy, of transforming evil as an experiment into that which motivates people to create uplifting, beneficial things for all life. That's the change in the omnipresent hue that really wasn't there before, in eternity before this. Hundreds of billions of years, wasn't there. Now it is. So we all have the opportunity to recover and become what we're meant to be, co-creators with the source. This is our destiny as beings. When I send out the hue, the beings I work with on ships and out in space, other worlds, master teachers, other dimensions hear it because I direct it to them. And I raise it in pitch or tone to connect it to each of the major plane divisions. so that beings working with me on this journey can begin to recover little bits of what they're doing and what they're running in these other realities other than just their life on earth that they've been made to forget. I'll begin these tones now. The other aspect of it is that it shuts down primary implants, secondary implants, and those subconscious things which create terror and fear of the future. It shuts them down. So as you get out of your body and go on this journey, your comprehension capability of the multiverse grows exponentially. There's protection that goes with working with the hue, but each individual must discover this truth for themselves. So they become confident with it. They require or awaken what is called direct knowing perception. That is not direct debate or theory or speculation perception. It is direct knowing perception. No doubt, no fear, no hesitation. Knowing. That is the nature of the Atma, or soul. I'll begin these tones now. You. With one eye closed and one eye open, Gail, turn off your microphone. One eye closed, one eye open.
I don't know if I can do that.
You just turn it off on Zoom.
I'm working on it. Gotta be able to, oh, I know what the problem is. Sorry.
That's where it shows a microphone, that's it. Because we get a little feedback, I'm going to begin these tones again. You being out of your body is normal. You do it every night when you put the body to sleep. But you would have no upbringing whatsoever on this planet, or very little, to practice or to use higher faculties intentionally, consciously, of true free will to bring back what it is you're doing when you're out. So this is not a normal planet, Earth. Human beings on it are not normal. As Atmas they are, but they don't know this yet. They once did. You can imagine a hummingbird. Anybody can do that. You can imagine what it's like to look on planet Earth from the space shuttle, from an astronaut photographing it. Everybody's seen that on the internet, or the Hubble Space Telescope that looks out and sees other galaxies, or they turn it on Earth and you can see the planet there like a blue-green jewel with polar ice caps glistening in space. As easy as it is to see any of that, most people never ponder turning it around so they can see themselves, their physical body sitting there or lying there on Earth, the eyes closed in the trance state. And they are a viewpoint above that body, near the ceiling, looking at it. Actually, what you are is a sphere of energy, not matter, not a body, that runs that body and that brain on this planet. You look like a being, like a planet or a sun or a moon. Have you ever wondered why they're round? They were made by beings who are round, obviously. Has a white core, brilliant white, pure, and a layer, well, a few inches about that, teardrop shaped colors that are orange, going from white into orange, kind of a layer there. And each one of those are lit up. They're not made of matter, but they are higher faculties. And there's a layer that becomes more red. And another layer that's a few inches away from that, it's a way of looking at it, that becomes more green and blue, and lavender and violet. And then around this sphere of light is a golden halo or golden energy field. The white core in this thing we call Atma or soul is connected to a field of energy that runs through the entire multidimensional creation. I should say it's actually comprised of the same energy that comes from a world or a place far beyond the void known to most Buddhist monks, way up in the upper dimensions, beyond the void. And each and every one of us as Atmas originated there. And this is the true form, what you could call made in the image of the source, supreme being. There was never a human body. As Atmas, we run bodies on different planets, on different dimensions. In order to learn, say for instance, in the emotional way, in the astral plane, the next plane up, beings move matter around through feeling. That is not done on the physical plane. Down here, matter's moved around from effort, from pushing, from pulling, from touching. In the causal, above the astral, it's causation. cause and effect and their relationship. In the mental, it's through thought, not emotion. The etheric is done through a frequency that is very close to the pure Atma, but still mixed with a little positive and negative. Just some people call this subconscious. It's a sheath of energy that surrounds the actual core of a being. And it's around that energy that traps are created. As a being hovering above your body, you can see yourself hovering in the atmosphere above where you live, in whatever town you're in, wherever you are on Earth, at about 5,000 feet up in the air, looking down on your city or countryside. And you can see that you are also a round sphere of light hovering above the body, near the ceiling, above the physical body's head that is sitting in the trance state called sleep. You put that in that state. My voice in the hue helped activate, shutting off negative subconscious influences so you could do this and remain conscious. You never taught this or shared this way when you're growing up, so why would you know about it otherwise? Look up and look around you. You'll see that there are beings that look like you, spherical. There's a couple, a man and a woman. You can tell they're human because they'll project a physical energy body in front of the sphere that looks like a man and a woman, about 36, beautifully formed, ageless, slightly larger eyes than humans on Earth, but human. And they make you feel comfortable. They're not threatening. And you seem to recognize or recall or remember something about them. And then you look up and you find yourself orbiting in space above the planet, just like the space shuttle or the Hubble telescope, except that you are looking down on the beautiful blue-green jewel of planet Earth. You can see the polar ice caps, the oceans and land masses, and from up here, you don't see any fences between countries. You don't see any cities. And you can see the moon orbiting the planet, and it's not turning on its axis. It revolves around the planet without turning on its axis, so we always see the same face. If you want to hide something or classify something in a space program from non-classified PhD scientists and astronomers and physicists on Earth, you do it and conduct it on the backside of the moon, where it can't be seen or detected from Earth. Common sense here. When you look down on the Earth and you look out in space, you see this black void everywhere between the Earth and the moon and the sun in the distance, and billions of stars in every direction. But as the Atma, the sphere that's hovering above the planet, there's this man and woman hovering with you, and my friend Ambassador Terrellian, who is of the Say rays. He's an ambassador from a race of beings that immortalized their physical bodies. They were human, 8-stranded DNA, and they did this over 1 billion years ago. They didn't make their physical bodies eternally, forever youthful. They dematerialized them and stored them in what you would call an atom within the Atma they are, and they can materialize it in a full physical form wherever they go. When they're done utilizing it, they dematerialize that same body and store it. Now, this is the way more advanced Atmas operate with dealing with bodies. You can see that there is a circle of several dozen beings forming around us. And Gail and myself and some others are floating in a circle around Terrellian. He's there a little brighter than we are, but he's an Atma. Very ancient and fully conscious for very ancient times, for several billion years. So he serves as a focal point. for us to circle around it just to keep us focused so we can do something constructive on this journey and not get lost in all of the lures of outer space. We want to make it constructive, awakening, enlightening. And when you look at the black void of space, you suddenly find that you can see it is filled with a white light with a golden tinge and is sparkling and moving everywhere in the black void of space, between the Earth and the Moon, between Terrellian and myself and Gail and all of you, and 24 Galactic Alliance representatives and several what they would call master adepts. I know who they are. They're here to witness what we do and partake in it, to contribute to it. You're safe. You don't feel cold or hunger or radiation or sun or anything like that. You're perfectly comfortable as the Atma because you're not made of matter. You are not nuclear in nature. You're not made of the atoms that make up the DNA of a body. Here you are your true self. Your body's still back on Earth in the trance state called sleep, perfectly safe. You do it every night. Let's take a little journey to what some people in religions on Earth and the Buddhist monks, a good many of them, call the void. When you look up in space and you see this white light with a golden tinge, you see a whirling circle of blue stars begin to open an interdimensional doorway. That's something Terrelli and I are doing. It just widens. And on the other side, you can see what looks to be a void of nothing. It's not black, it's not white, it just doesn't appear to be anything in it. But when you look again from the Atma and with the vibration that's being raised by Terrellian, you begin to see that there is a white light with a gold tinge filling and running through the void. No planets, no stars, no galaxies. But there are beings there, come and go through it all the time. It is a pure energy field that divides the upper worlds that most people on Earth know nothing about, and the lower dimensions where the experiment of positive and negative, good and bad, or what we call evil, reigns for now. And we're going to sail as Atmas in a big funnel, starting with Terrellian. We're moving up into that door, opening through a, I don't know, seems like it might be 1,000 feet tunnel, and then we're coming out on the other side in the middle of a vast expanse of white light. And that vortex below our, which you look down, closes. You can see Earth down there. You can see the moon, and then it disappears. Now, we have just gone through a connecting energy conduit between the physical universe near Earth and the void, 4 dimensions up. We bypassed the physical, 144 dimensions, parallel, astral, causal, mental, etheric, and we are in the void above that. Many people think this is the end or the source. It is not. Now you're floating in a sea of light. In every direction, you can't see anything. No forms, no structures. Just this white light with a golden tinge, vibrating through everything. And it's vibrating the white core of your being floating there. We're still in a circle around Terrellian. And then, without realizing, you finally discover that we are moving across a vast expanse. Someone who knows the destination can imagine it and take us to that. And you're going to see coming up in the distance a long white golden beach that extends in each direction as far as the eye can see. And then you see a tropical paradise, giant palm trees and giant ferns. And we're going to move in towards that coast like an ocean crashing against a beach, but it's not water. It's this white light. And we're going to move over the top of that coast. And when you look down, you see a botanical paradise, gardens, pathways, fruit trees, birds with long V-shaped split tails, twice as long as their bodies. They look like blue jays on Earth with slightly bulbous blue eyes that wrap partially around the side of their head, and two sets of bird wings, one above the other, like a dragonfly. But they hover or move through the air like a hummingbird. And they have rainbow-colored bodies. And the color of the rainbow is blended so subtly, it's like one spectacular, beautiful rainbow-colored bird. And they're hovering and moving between trees. And then a dozen of them come and hover before us, and we stop in the atmosphere above the ocean beach, below where our feet would be. And they begin to sing. They have beautiful singing voices. These are birds not on Earth. And if you look above these birds, you'll see an Atma hovering above each one. These are Atmas that are choosing to run these advanced genetic bird bodies to see what it's like to be a bird with telepathy, photographic memory, and vocal cords. You can hear these birds talk to you and welcome you. This is the first realm, the beach along the shoreline of what's called the Atma plane, the first of the higher dimensions above the void. And there's a being who runs this plane. He's not a tyrant. And he is bald, bronze-skinned, about 36, with 2 gold bracelets that he puts in his upper arms, and a little white tunic dress from his waist down to his ankles are bare feet. Bare-chested, youthful, vibrant. And he's hovering in the air just behind the birds. And you look above him and you see this very large, bright Atma hovering there. That's the real him. And he welcomes us by moving his hand towards the right that we can enter. So the birds part and go back to their journeys to the trees and whatever it is they're doing. And we move over the top of that jungle and come to rest above a fountain in a tropical paradise surrounded by a white marble type floor. And it is a fountain that looks like white alabaster with scalloped edges, sat on a blue lapis lazuli pedestal. That's what it looks like. And there's a statue of this being who's hovering near us, standing in it, with his palms down near his sides, and this white light with a golden tinge pouring from his palms like water into this bowl of this pond, of this fountain, this circular fountain on the pedestal. It fills it and pours over the edges, the scalloped edges, in an even sheet that's glowing. And it vanishes as it hits the white marble floor. You can see that this shaft of light, when you look up, comes from somewhere much higher in the atmosphere of this reality and down through this statue. So this is a type of device that feeds the worlds below the void, and this being is more or less in charge of it. Often he's called Sadnam, it just means true name, and all that means is the first manifestation in any form that is an Atma between the unmanifested upper worlds and the lower created worlds. So he's really not a body at all. That's kind of an illusion, just so we can recognize who he is. Things are changing within the consciousness of this being as well, dealing with retiring the experiment of evil. Because consciousness changed in these upper worlds recently too. Find yourself suddenly feeling feet, bare feet, walking on this white marble floor. It's a large area, hundreds of feet wide, surrounding the statue with botanical gardens going off with paths in every direction. There's a crystalline type palace up against snow-covered mountains in the distance. And you can feel your feet touch this cool white stone. And when you look up, you realize it's feet that looks like your human body. Your human body looks to be there, but it isn't. It's an energy form that looks like you. And when you look up with that energy form, and your eyes look up, you see the Atma, the real you, hovering there, looking down. Be the sphere looking down on this body that looks like you, smiling kindly at it, and feel your feet on the marble. You can hear a sound coming from this white light with a golden tinge. And it sounds like a million men and women's voices with perfect, flawless vocal cords singing you on many levels until it blends into one powerful, vibrating sound. That's the first word sound behind all creation. And it comes from many planes higher than here, and we are comprised of it as beings. So we have a natural relationship and connection to it. Now, you, the Atma, you're going to see Torellian and I do this first. We're going to move right into that beam of energy above the statue's head. And you can see us hovering inside it with this energy roaring up and down, passing through us. Safe, perfectly fine. Move yourself inside that channel of light as a sphere and enjoy hovering inside it, bathing in it for a short time. You'll see that it's lighting up the white core of your being a little brighter than it's ever been before. The golden tinge in that white light is a new ray of consciousness. It didn't even exist up here for about 7.5 Earth years ago. So the destiny of Earth has been altered permanently. People on Earth will find it out in time. Then move outside this channel of light and find yourself hovering above the white sand at the shore of this realm. This is the Atma plane. This is where Atmas can go and get in human or animal bodies that have vocal cords that are higher intelligence, and they can learn how to be those beings in different bodies, how to love and have compassion for all forms that Atmas run. Because Atmas run animals on Earth too. And they suffer and they get terrorized and they get killed and all that stuff. But here, this kind of thing does not happen. The animals you will find in this realm have vocal cords and you can speak with them. It's this kind of memory way back in the consciousness of human beings on Earth that they've forgotten, that they wish they could recover. Their telepathic nature with other fellow beings. The energy you're going to bring back from this journey, when you look down, you find that you are now moving away from this long, infinite white beach. You can see that land receding into the distance till it vanishes. And you're floating in an infinite void of white light with a golden tinge. Now, when you look in focus, you're going to find there are countless beings hovering in this light, doing something, moving through it. Atmas like yourself. So the void is not void. If you don't have the imagination to see it, you will not see the beings here. So it will appear as an empty realm. It is kept unformed by things or forms other than the Atma deliberately to keep the barrier pure between the upper worlds and the lower worlds. And you look below where your feet would be and you find there's a vortex opening. You're suddenly shot through it and find yourself hovering in orbit above planet Earth, Torellian and myself and 24 other beings hovering in a circle around us, who are telling you that what you've done here, what you've experienced, is very pleasing to all of them, because they don't understand yet how people on Earth, so suppressed, as few of us as there are, can make such a journey despite what was done to them. And they're very surprised by the potential we represent to them. Find yourself hovering in the atmosphere above where you live on Earth. See yourself as a sphere hovering above the body, wherever it is, in the trance state called sleep. Smile kindly on yourself and let this white light with a gold tinge from the white core of your being move gently down through your head, the pineal gland, into your brain, out through your body, and out into your room and out into the planet Earth. And let it flow like a river, uninterrupted. When you're ready, open your eyes. You can turn on your mic, Gail.
There we go.
When I do these things in the beginning, I didn't take people to that realm above the void, public, like these radio shows can do. But I've been given the clearance, you might say, to start to do that, because if you can't get a being to remember what they were as a fully conscious operating being above the duality that works in the lower dimensions, which is where they started, in fact, even higher than that, you're not really going to do them much service. They need to begin to remember how they operate as a little God co-creating with the big one. Because if they bring that to earth a little bit at a time, it begins to undo all the evil that was ever done to them or that they ever did to anyone else. It begins to reverse all that. So I want to leave your audience with that, and then they can have their own experience with it. I would recommend that when they can create a time where they're uninterrupted, where they can play back this recording after you get it on your channel, right?
Yes.
I'll send it to you. Then they can go on the journey again, because they're going to find as they do it more, they're going to get a lot more detail out of just how much we did on this journey.
That is so true. Yes. I can vouch for that.
Okay, and that way, and it doesn't cost them anything.
I know.
Who would have thought of that? Yeah, it's just the way it is in my work.
And it's a beautiful experience.
I do have 2 books I've published. I usually mention.
Oh, yes.
This is the Seres Agenda. This is a proof copy. That's why you see this little line running through it. That wouldn't be there in a book that you might acquire. And this is Mark Sandfield, who is a character in the book. He's in the high Sierras. He's got a little tent beside a tree. A ship contacts him with a human on board not from Earth. And he already knew about conspiracies and all that kind of thing and extraterrestrials, and everybody was being covered up on Earth. They weren't being told. And his life is saved when he agrees of free will, as scared as he is, to get beamed aboard that ship. These 3 guys in these black suits are trying to kill him. They look human, but they're not. This is the Seres Agenda. Remember Ambassador Turellian of the Seres? In the back of this book is a whole 50-some-odd page technique section designed with a technique for the prologue in each chapter to help people recover the hidden truth that's revealed here.
That is a book that you won't be able to put down once you start reading it. That's been my experience. And it's
Then there's the Emerald Doorway, which is book 1 of the Parallel Time Trilogy. If you can see what these beings are doing, that is a master teacher holding a quartz crystal staff that has like the Egyptian Ankh on top with a circle and a cross. It's a device. That is Etta. He is a Dren, about 3 feet long, smooth green skin, big bulbous blue eyes, photographic memory, intelligent. He is not carbon-based like humans. He's not from Earth. Highly evolved, has a family. His tail grows like crystal opal in sunlight. And he is a creature that evolved on another world to defy gravity and fly through the air. And that is Calum, and that is Melina. She's blue-skinned. She's not from Earth. She's Oceanian. They're on anti-gravitic discs hovering above the Earth after the last polar ship that destroyed Lemriel and Atlantis at the time. That's his ship in the clouds, stationarily hovering. And this master teacher is introducing them to the Ancient One, the Source, which looks like that. That is what each of you really look like. Multidimensional, multicolored, and it controls bodies. So this is their first experience about that higher reality. This is a guy who gets deranged. He's not from Earth. He's human. He wants to take control of everything. That's why he's got Earth in the palm of his hand. He's holding on to a green crystal he stole from a master teacher who he killed. So this is not a new story for people as far as good guys and bad guys. But there's a lot of hidden truth revealed in this book about our own solar system that goes back more than 100,000 years prior to the last polar shift involving extraterrestrials then. This is book 1. The other 2 are written, so they'll be published sequentially. They're out there. You go to my websites like at paralleltime.com. That's paralleltime.com, Parallel Time. there are links to trustworthy online retailers like Barnes and Noble or Amazon or iTunes or whatever. The only way I can get these doorways, what I call interdimensional doorways to people on this planet, I have to be sold through online retailers. I can't get them to anyone. So that's the only thing that's sold. My videos, my work online with Gail, with Perry, radio shows, or any private sessions I do with people do not ever have any money involved in them. They can't, because I work with beings who don't use it. So just a little FYI for people. They can do whatever they want with it, but it will be very beneficial when they go through these videos to go through that book, because when they have questions and they wake up with profound dreams in the morning, or they're on a ship, or they're remembering something they were made to forget and they want to know more about it, they can find the chapter in that book that best resembles the truth that's revealed in it, in the journey, and then do the technique for that chapter, and they can work with that for a period of nights and get their own answers. Okay.
That's excellent. I just started doing the end of the book. I didn't do it right away, like it suggested, just because you finish reading the book and then you put it aside and forget about it. You shouldn't do that, because I can tell already that is very important to.
Well, thanks for saying that, Gail. But yeah, it's true. You should go through the book to really get the whole journey, because the first part of the book, Mass Halfway, is about direct experiences I have. I only write about experiences I had directly in either books or any of my work. But as it gets in the other half, it starts going down into the future time track that's changed for this planet. And we aren't even there yet. So you'll get to see how this comes about ahead of time. And that helps you be able to become a co-creator to that change, to that creation, transformation unexpectedly for this planet as people. People aren't going to see it coming. They're going to appreciate it when it does. So I'll leave you with that and say pleasant dreams. And I'll see you next time, Gail.
Okay, thank you so much, Scott. It's wonderful every time. Thank you.